Well, back in the 1960s, Ireland had a very small, elite higher education system, catering almost exclusively for the professions and some employment outlets in the public sector. When the Irish industrial development took off during the 1960s, several employers and various reports drew our attention to the fact that there was a scarcity of technical and managerial expertise in the country. And this was confirmed in a number of reports, but the most influential report for our sector was the Steering Committee's report chaired by Noel Mulcahy, who later became Dean of Engineering in the University of Limerick. And that report made a strong case for the establishment of the regional technical colleges and said that they should educate people for a broad spectrum of occupations in trade and industry, from craft to professional level, chiefly in science and engineering, but also in business, linguistics and other specialities. So in 1963, Paddy Hillary, who was Minister for Education at the time, announced the establishment of regional technical colleges. Initially, the government decision was for 8. And the first 5 colleges started in 1970. And Letterkenny came on in 1971, Galway in 72, Cork in 74, and now we have 14 institutes of technology, if you count the biggest one in the country, which is Dublin Institute of Technology, which is really an amalgamation of various VEC colleges, some of which started way back at the end of the 19th century. But the colleges then have grown enormously over the years. Between Dublin Institute of Technology now and all the other institutes of technology, there are over 54,000 full-time students in the sector, and about 17 or 18 part-time students following accredited programmes. All the colleges now have delegated authority to give their own awards for all Level 6, Level 7, Level 8 and Level 9 taught programmes, and in some cases for research qualifications as well. So there has been a major change from the start back in 1970 to today. Well, there were many controversies over the years, but perhaps the biggest controversy was on the 16th of December 1974, when the then Minister for Education, Richard Burke, made a very important statement about higher education in Ireland. And in that statement, he said that the objective of the government was to create a comprehensive system of higher education. Up to then, the binary system had started between the universities and the RTCs as they were at the time. But that decision was to create a comprehensive system. Now, that caused a big controversy all around the country. And there were a lot of students in the system at the time studying for degree programmes. And the NCA, which had been established, was not allowed to confer their degrees. They could confer certificates and diplomas, but not degrees. And even in Galway here, there was a major controversy because we had our first degree course sanctioned called the BA in Hotel and Catering Management. And the students were processed in accordance with the recommendations of the NCA for their final degree. 4 students passed their final exam. But by the time they had done that, the degree awarding powers had been withdrawn from the NCA. So the NCA weren't allowed to confer the degree. They were told that they could put a rubric on the parchment saying that it was equivalent to or the same as a degree, but it was called an advanced diploma. But when the graduation ceremony came off anyway in May 1976, the 4 students who were graduating, each of them refused to accept their parchment. And it generated considerable publicity, both locally and nationally. And shortly after that, then Richard Burke was appointed as European Commissioner, and he left Irish politics. And shortly after Peter Barry became Minister for Education, he asked NCA to honour any commitments they'd made. But the government decision still stood, but any students in the system were going to be looked after. Then in June 1977, there was a general election, and Fianna Fáil came to power. And the new government, were the first decisions of the new Minister for Education at the time, John Wilson, was to restore the degree awarding powers to the NCA. So from that point onwards, we've had a binary system in higher education. And there's still were the big debates to this day, whether you should have a comprehensive or a binary system. So that was one of the biggest controversies we had over the years. But there were many others as well. There was a lot of controversy in Limerick. When Limerick started off, they went to Cork UCC to have their courses validated and assessed, and they certainly had far from a pleasant experience. And they too were glad to see the degree awarding powers restored to the NCA. Later then they kept up their campaign for university and all that, which they eventually got in 1989. Colleges made an enormous contribution to providing qualified people for the expanding labour force in Ireland, especially all the multinationals that came in and all that. So a lot of new skills had to be developed and all that. So the RTCs, or the Institute of Technologies, as they now are, made an enormous contribution to that. Secondly, they made a big contribution to facilitating access to higher education and participation in higher education. Even as late as 1980, the participation rate was about 20%. Now it's 66%. As well as that, the Institutes of Technology attracted a lot of students from the lower socioeconomic groups, which had been very much unrepresented in higher education up to then. And as well as that, the colleges became major drivers for regional development and catalysts for change and development in their regions. So I think these are the main achievements of the Institutes of Technology.